give a round of applause to all these great musicians that have been here today. The poet Josh, the brother with the Bigfoot song, and the gentleman before me, this guy here, he definitely should have a record deal at this point. Right?
Brody Bennett.
He's clearly, professional.
Yeah.
I'll be doing some poetry tonight. I wrote a book, Netter, N-E-T-R, you can find on Amazon. You can also get the audiobook. I'm trying to bring back mythology. It's a genre I call spiritual fiction. Just like science fiction uses the future to explore ideas to help us today, I use ideas from the ancient past and the cultural systems that millions of people have already loved and appreciated, and use them in a secular way to teach us how to be more heroic and teach us how to be more courageous, because we all got everyday problems. But the inspiration from those myths, it was more than just something you walk out of the movie theater and it's always a good movie and I like the special effects. Like, you really appreciated a play about Hercules and Odysseus, and it's like, and people worship these people as gods. And even in some ways, Jesus and Buddha, they have their own hero journey. So I'm trying to bring back that and help us all become more heroic. So I'll be reading 2 excerpts from Netter, and I appreciate your time. So the first excerpt is what I call the birth of Krstjah. It's the birth of the main character of the saga. On that glorious and august day, the sun became solstice again, and Queen Omega stood in a private pool under the open sky. Gathered were all the angels and consorts of the gods, the holy spiritists of Kismet, and the family members of Rastarai. The spiritists bore witness to the array of spiritual watchers there, and the Rastarai family bore witness to 2 supernatural events. At the moment Krstjah left Queen Omega's body, a strong breeze burst forth, and it filled the sky with an enchanting scent. This breeze was a wave of purifying magnetic energy, and it brought an involuntary smile to the face of everyone it reached. And when Krstjah was raised out of the waters, his first cry seemed to come from the sky, arising as if a clap of thunder unleashed. Queen Omega instantly felt both the joy of accomplishing her toll for immortality, her soul's purpose, and the agonizing pain of the poison in her and her doom. As she sat down in the water, her third eye fully opened, and she could see Kairos Rastarai, the sun, and Jehuti Mayat Mawinzi, the god of wisdom, that noon. Through this hidden light, she saw all humans there gathered in angelic Irene form, and she saw every wonderful spirit there in the sky. Yet she had never seen such transcendent and profound beauty as her new child Krstjah, and he never again left her third eye. Queen Omega grabbed hold of Krstjah and felt a surge of energy flowing into her body as if a plasma was charging her electrons. Placing Krstjah onto her bosom filled her with an ecstatic joy and bliss, and love beyond all imagination in every spectrum. Krstjah's skin seemed as hot as the sun, yet it did not burn Queen Omega, and she praised the Almighty for giving birth to the son of the sun, the Sarah. Though she was being paralyzed by the devil's poison, she held Krstjah above her head so that she may see him shine again as a star. As she held Krstjah up, Queen Omega knew her last breath was in her lungs, and the fear of losing the love of Krstjah overcame her. Queen Omega whispered an ancient and magical Rastarai phrase into Krstjah's ear, and then she asked to become Krstjah's retainer. Almighty I give thanks for the duty of keeping clean and compassionate the heart of my son Krstjah while he lives in flesh. At that, Queen Omega's soul forever left her heart and body, and it entered Krstjah's heart, where it could now nourish him afresh. With his mother's soul now in his heart, baby Krstjah received her insight and now understood all she had understood and taught. Her wisdom swirled around in his newborn mind like a tempest of smoke, and when he had a question, it would become a solid thought. Krstjah knew the flesh of his mother holding him was now dead, And he saith, My mother has been reborn in me, and in me she remains. Though her life in flesh is no more, the victory is Queen Omega's, for the everlastingness of her soul is what she has attained. Krstjah then smiled innocently, once again seeming to be only a gentle newborn, and those gathered marveled at this miracle. As King Khufu Rasarai tried to wake his dying daughter, his queen took hold of Krstjah, and those gathered knew this life would be magical. So that's the birth of the Son of the Sun, the main character. This next excerpt is when he starts to travel. He leaves his home country. The evil emperor chases him out of his home country, scared that he's going to grow up and kill him. So he roams the world with 3 magi kings. And this is one of the first major miracles that happens while they're traveling the world. So this excerpt is called Zoroaster, the Mace of Zoroaster and the Palace of Sin. Eve invited us to feast in the palace, even at the table of the king and queen, and the combination of her beauty and sly words convinced us to go. As the sun set behind our backs, the west wind blew through our hair, and we followed Eve to the royal couple's orange chateau. The palace was built above an underground aquifer, and the ground floor of the palace was a beautiful water reserve and cistern. Inside the cistern were arches and columns decorated with jewels, and a filtration system that phyto-filtered the water with water ferns. The top floor of the palace had 8 rooms, which encircled a lounge room that had a throne at its head and a jacuzzi at its center. Here the king and queen entertained their guests and lovers with feasts and frolicking, and they were partying there when we entered. Carnal desires of every kind were being satisfied in the beautiful satin room, and elite freaks and concubines were wild in ecstasy. Eve escorted us to a table near the front, where King Hiram and Queen Mara were seated on their thrones and enjoying the revelry. We kings ignored the debaucherous atmosphere, and we delighted with gourmet delicacies we had never before enjoyed. As we dined and grew merry, Eve went up to Queen Mara and whispered in her ear the final details of her employ. The king and queen and elites of that small kingdom had open relationships, and it was common for either partner to have a harem. Queen Mara was famous or infamous for executing lovers over the slightest whims, and this had earned her the name Queen Redrum. From her first look, Queen Mara was transfixed with Krstjah's perfect black body, his golden locks, and his transcendent smile. Queen Mara paid Eve 8 times more than usual, and with her reward, Eve tiptoed back into the village and the wild. Soon, we were summoned before the king and queen, and we stood before their thrones with our backs to the grand jacuzzi. The queen was surrounded by half-naked lovers, whilst the gloomy king sat guarded by armed men eager to perform their lethal duty. King Hiram welcomed us to his palace and entreated us to have fun. Then he asked us our origins and destinations. King Beastar would construct identities for us that were appropriate for each area, so Krstjah never had to lie during such interrogations. Though we had no fear of being discovered by Emperor Iset's allies, we reasoned that only friends need know our true identities. So after Beastar deftly demonstrated the details of his fiction, King Mara seemed convinced we were not enemies. Queen Mara saith, Our kingdom is full of beauties, yet never has a more beautiful group of travelers ever entered our gates. To be frank, your seed and rich color would increase the beauty in our harems, and imagine the pleasure which awaits. Stay with us and be our steeds and stallions, and live as those in heaven live, like princes of pleasure in the lap of luxury. And you, she say while pointing to Krstjah, would be my sweet ebony, and I would love you with the passion of hell's fury. Beastar thanked the queen for her words and offer. Then he assured her that we would soon need to get back to our odyssey. Beastar introduced a pilgrimage aspect to his fiction of our identities, and he again offered his thanks and apologies. Queen Mara's smile did not waver, as she declared that no god or their duties would take honorable men from a life of such pleasure. She insisted that our quest had ended, and that we had found our pot of gold, and that the name of our new god was Leisure. Beastar agreed to stay for a time more, and to consider her offer, and then Queen Mara addressed Krstjah and redeclared her love. She extolled Krstjah's beauty, and then offered him all of her riches and homes, and then she called my lord the Black Dove. Krstjah remained silent, whilst Beastar explained that though Krstjah had the body of a young Adonis, he was still not of age. This news only delighted the queen, and she swore that she would tutor Krstjah in the art of love until he was its greatest sage. Zoroaster reasoned that Beastar's diplomacy no longer seemed appropriate, and he clarified our intentions to remain sovereign. He unwittingly admitted that Krstjah was from a land of many waters, and he said Krstjah was not a dove, but a black moorhen. King Hadron perked up, intuiting his queen's ire was awakening, for he was long witness to the extremes of her vanity and despotism. Queen Mara concealed her temper and insisted on having Krstjah once more, but Zoroaster's next words triggered her egotism. She stood up suddenly and said, "How dare you refuse me in my own home, as if I am not worthy of dirty, wandering pilgrims? Hiram, let your men have their way with these fools, for they have strolled into my den not knowing my pseudonyms." King Hiram was sadistic, for while he took no pleasure in sex, nothing gave him more pleasure than killing one of Queen Mara's Adonises. He watched Mara for a little while, amused to no end by his devilish wife, before sinking his swords upon us. Hiram's samurai were fully clad in armor, and their shining weapons were razor sharp, glistening, and terrifying even to behold. They charged immediately, as if unleashed dogs, and I thought I saw my last life flash before me in the gleam of their weapons' gold. And as soon as they started at us, Zoroaster rotated the core of his ram mace and activated his gift from King Khufu Rastarai. The mace had been supercharged with energy from the Red Sea miracle, and it suddenly became as if the pupil of the sun's eye. An unending torrent of wind and fury flowed from the mace, along with light so bright that it was as if a white hole in a portal. Zoroaster held the mace high above his head, and though it turned the samurai into bones, we kings were unaffected, as if immortals. The firestorm blew away anything it did not dissolve, and even a second seemed as if forever under the power of that light. Zoroaster hoped the jacuzzi would quench the mace's wrath, but as soon as he threw it in the jacuzzi, the waters evaporated from sight. The mace of light then dissolved through the basalt base of the jacuzzi and continued to evaporate all the waters below in the palace's cistern. A fog of steam quickly enveloped the palace, and then the area, and soon the entire village. And as the mace continued to fall and burn, as the raven of Jehudi flew over the palace, Mars the red star twinkled in the night sky, and the steam rose up to the stars. We were in a cloud of vapor and felt the earth rumble and quake, and in time we heard a beautiful explosion that sounded of sitars. In time the earth quaked no more, and then the steam cleared, and we realized we were no longer in a palace nor even a town. We stood in a crater as vast as the village was, and as deep as Bird Mountain was high, as if we were in the island's inverse now. The palace, the village, the rams, and the red heifers all were burnt as if sacrificed, and only salt crystals remained inside the great mar. Zoroaster retrieved his mace, and we left what is now called Al-Waba crater, which corresponds to the Mare Erythrium on the Red Star. Thank you. Again, the book is Netter, N-E-T-R. You can find the audiobook on Amazon, the book, also on my website, rastri.com, R-A-S-T-R-I.com. You guys enjoy your night.